Hi, everybody. It's Babos, and this is True Theater Resources Unlimited. It's our Friday community gathering, and we're moving into the future with today's gathering. It's something that we started April 17th, 2020, because we were all forced into shutdown, and we decided to do a room where people could come and be together and have a haven from the horror of COVID that we've been going through. So everything's been about working in shutdown and Zoom and radio things and podcasts and all these alternatives to theater. But today we are making the step into the future. Today we're going to talk about live theater. Now, kids, I want you to know, once upon a time, there was something called live theater. So today we're going to actually look at theater that happens live with audiences in theater spaces and venues. It's a wild new concept that we're bringing back to the world. We have to be safe still. There's something called the Delta variation of COVID, so we're not in the clear yet. However, I think people have found reasonable ways to return to something resembling what we used to know as normal. A lot of it requires being vaccinated. I urge everyone here and everyone listening, you may have lots of personal reasons why you don't want to be vaccinated. You may have lots of spiritual reasons and all sorts of reasons. I went through the deeply spiritual path in the 80s where I rejected Western medicine completely. I eventually found out that it has its uses. And one of the uses of Western medicine and vaccines that seems so unappealing to some of you out there, it's basically for the community. It's for community welfare. It's not just for you. It's because you can come down with something. You may not care that you come down with COVID, or you may think that you're healthy enough to survive it. But what about the people that you can come into contact with? So again, I just urge everyone to please vaccinate. Please get vaccinated. And that's one of the reasons why we're able to return to live theater. We have protocols that are put in place now. And one of them is requiring that people be vaccinated in order to participate in certain indoor activities. And sometimes people are being socially distanced, and there are still things that we're doing, but the hallelujah here is that we're back and we're live and in person and we're doing theater again. And I want you to meet some people who are COVID pioneers. They're among the first to actually get their shows up and in front of audiences. So I want to bring them into the room right now. And I want you to meet Edward Einhorn, Jonathan Hogue, and Iben Cenholt. Edward has been running a theater company called the Untitled Theater Company, Untitled Theater Company 61, which you'll explain to people, I hope, Edward. And Jonathan Hogue is an independent producer. He's been through our producer development and mentorship program, and he's involved in producing his own piece right now. And Iben Cenholt, who's our favorite technologist of all time, she's worked with us, she's worked with our benefits, she's worked with our play reading series, and she's working with other people right now, offering people a live stream or recorded aspect of their work that allows people, like the people looking at us on YouTube, you're going to be able to actually look at Edward's work on a recorded live stream at some point. So, guys, you introduce yourselves a little bit more. Tell people things that I just don't know. Edward Einhorn, welcome.
Hi. So yeah, I've been running Untitled Theater Company number 61 for over 25 years now. We've been doing work mostly it's been downtown, but all around town in indie theater. And it was formed. We started off in a art gallery, which is how the Untitled number started, because there were a lot of Untitled paintings around us.
Well,
And
thank goodness it wasn't your 61st attempt at having a theater company.
My older brother was born in 1961, and he's a lawyer, or he was a lawyer, and he wanted to sort of his charge for incorporating the theater company was using the date of his birth. So he co-founded it with me. And he actually just passed away like a month ago. But
I'm so sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But that's how we started. And yeah, so
you have a very rich and illustrious history. You've been producing consistently for 25 years. Would you say you have a season? Do you do seasonal productions, or is it you produce whenever possible when you have the resources?
So we do 1 or 2 shows a year, and then we do events. So our usual season, has 1 or 2 major shows, and then we have. I mean, it depends on the year, but one-off events and readings and things like that. And that's how we've been working for a number of years. We used to do a lot of festivals. We pivoted away to just standalone shows a while ago. Often we work in collaboration with La Mama or Here Theater or the Ohio, theaters like that. We've had a really productive set of collaborations over the years. Though our current show, it's at Art New York, and they subsidize it because Art New York is a really amazing organization, but it's not quite. It's a sort of different situation than the curated or co-productions with some of the other theaters.
The reason why I'm going to dig a little into your company structure is because True has been doing a series of panels and discussions, and we're having a town hall next week. I want to actually help revitalize interest in small theater companies, and I want to get people together to talk about who they are and what they do, so that other people that are starting companies or have started companies and are struggling can sort of learn from each other and find out what has been successful. So you are a 501c3. You're a not-for-profit, correct?
Yeah, that's what my brother did. we were non-for-profit very early because we had a lawyer, as a co-founder. So he made us non-for-profit immediately.
And one of the things that I always say is the difference between not-for-profit and commercial producing or indie producing is that it's the kind of money that you get. So as a not-for-profit, you get donations, and people get taxable donation letters and things like that. And have you ever thought about what it would be like if your company were not 501c3 and didn't have a board of directors and all sorts of financial responsibilities like that?
The activity of producing and getting grants and donations is always the hardest part of doing, running a theater company for me. But on the other hand, the work we do is needs to be supported by that sort of money. So I don't know that a for-profit model would necessarily work for us so well.
So I'm going to use that as a segue to Jonathan. Once we talk about your show, we're going to start talking about the technical aspects of it. So we're going to bring Iben into the conversation. But Jonathan, you are not a 501c3, is that correct?
Correct. We are not.
Why not?
We've been a commercial production since the beginning. We're not really, We haven't been set up that way.
And part of that is because right now you're doing a one-off, right? You set up your producing entity to produce Stranger Things, or have you produced other
Correct.
works of your own? Do you produce other stuff of your own?
This is the first full mounting of a stage production I've done. So our producing team, our LLC, is strictly for this one show. So we're not coming out of a theater company necessarily now.
So basically, guys, my attendees in the room, these are two of your best options. You either follow the 501c3 model and create a theater company, and that usually means that you really are serious about continuing to produce every year. Don't do it if you're just doing a one-off, which Jonathan has made, I think, the right choice at this point, because you don't know how often you're going to be producing in the future. So my question, actually, if anybody in the room has any other questions about the 501c3 versus the commercial entity, this is a conversation I want to keep going. I've started, this is like the fourth or fifth gathering where I'm doing this. So put a question in the chat and I'll try to get to it. So let's talk about now. Well, let's not talk about now yet. Let's talk about March 12th, 2020. Edward, for you, what happened on March 12th, 2020 when we were entered shutdown?
Well, we had just cast a show, the first show that was moving to London. The German Street Theater and Off West End Theater was picking it up.
Love the German Street Theater. That's a great theater.
It's a great theater. And so, and it was scheduled to start rehearsals in May. And so I had actually just come back from London where we cast, and it became clear, within like a week of returning that there was not going to be a London show. So I actually pretty quickly moved to, we put up a video production very quickly. We had this one-on-one performance we've been doing. We're going to do live, and I said that this would be a good via Skype event, and we started it off, and it's actually still going. We're on hiatus during the live production, but it will start again in September. So that's been an ongoing thing throughout the whole pandemic.
So are you talking about a single video production that you created, or have you done more than one thing? I mean, Untitled Theater Company has maintained your identity and your activity online through a video production.
Yeah, well, we actually did quite a lot during the pandemic. We did 2 audio plays that were like podcasts, and then 3 or 4 parts. We did a sort of enhanced Zoom, but also like enhanced video production of the play that's going to go up in London, just as a fundraiser to help raise funds for that. We did a sort of game that was like in which called Poor Players, where people pretended to be theater off of Broadway theater producers, and they played the part of the producer, which actually I think Terry might have fun with. So we've been doing a lot of stuff, and even in May we did an outdoor 2-show outdoor thing of a cabaret that we've done before, and we did it outdoors.
This past May.
This past May, yeah. So we were one of the first people to actually return in that way to have an outdoor show.
How is it that you were able to jump on and pivot so quickly? Didn't you have a moment of thinking, "Oh my God, but my life is over"? I'm never going to do theater again. Was there a nanosecond of despair?
Well, I mean, I was very, very excited, and about the London show, and hopefully that will be in this spring. So of course I was very disappointed. I was very worried about, the future things. It seemed clear that we weren't returning to into the theaters for about a year and a half. I mean, for the top for me, it seemed pretty clear.
Well, good
And
for you. The rest of us were going, no, July, no, September, no, December.
I
Oh,
was
certainly by
having I was having a conversation with Ralph because we were all on a Zoom call right at the beginning, and the people were talking about what are we gonna do immediately, and I brought up like I was like, but we're not returning back to the theater for a year and a half. Like, what are our plans then? And there was sort of a silence, and people. I think someone told me later they were like, "Oh, you're just being exaggerating, Edward." uh Whatever. And but
well,
that's
kudos to you for being realistic. Um, yes, there were moments where I actually thought the same thing, but I went along with the back by Labor Day, back by Christmas, Thanksgiving is going to happen, first of the year. I mean, we were all just wiggling around that, and I think most of us to some degree knew that there was only the least possibility, a slight possibility that would happen. It was really hard for us to figure out just how serious the situation was, which in some cases is a blessing, because I think if we had all known how serious it was at the start, we would have been terrified. And we got through it, I think, a little bit more easily by holding on to glimpses of hope. It's like little splinters of hope. So even for you, we're not talking about Alma Baya, Alma Baya yet. But for you, what was it like when we went into shutdown? What were the things that you had to put on hold, or was it an advantage for you since you're a technical person? You do film, you do video. So was it like an opportunity, and did you know that right away?
I did not know that right away, but yes, it was an opportunity, and part of the reason why it became an opportunity was because of True. Up until the pandemic, what my company had been doing was to actually go on site and film and produce videos of the performance. Some of them for videos on demand, and most of them were for sort of the archival versions for the director's benefit and the theater company's benefit.
And just in case anybody out there is wondering, yes, Iben has birds.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I am bird sitting. And they will be with me for the next year.
So people that are panicking out there and going, oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? Those are birds. That's all they are. They're just birds.
David wanted to see them the other day, so I showed him a couple of them.
Okay. So for you, it turned out to be an opportunity, because the rest of us were just completely, we just didn't know what we were doing. It's like Zoom. Okay, what's Zoom? How do you do that? What's a film? We're all theater people. We don't know what film is. So we all had to make a pivot that actually offered you opportunities to help people get through this. So, and I know that you helped True tremendously. So I thank you. I will always be grateful. Jonathan, for you, what was March 12th like for you? I think the official shutdown was the 15th, but theater closed on March 12th.
Yeah. So I was actually doing my first contract on a Broadway production. I was a production assistant for the production management team on Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. So we were the first theater to have a positive COVID case. That was really fun.
Oh God, I thought it was Moulin Rouge.
We had the usher that had contracted it a week before, and there was some sort of it wasn't in a cast. Moulin Rouge, I think, had the first cast case, but we had an usher in our theater. There was some sort of news blitz that happened the day before the shutdown, saying that we had our first COVID case, and we had a whole meeting in the theater the day before shutdown with everyone in the theater industry felt like in that room trying to figure out what to do. So that was pretty weird. It was my first Broadway production I'd worked on, and we're in a place where theater legends are not sure what's going on either. So that was weird. But as far as my show went, we were close to, we were having conversations about moving my show Stranger Things off Broadway, I think for that summer. Either that summer or fall. We had a lead producer we were talking to the GM, we were talking to the lead producer, trying to figure out budgets. And then the shutdown happened. And again, like everyone else, we thought, oh, it's going to be a month, it's going to be 2 months, and so we kept putting it off. And I think around probably like mid to late summer was when I was like, all right, I think we're just going to put this one on the shelf for a while and see what happens. And thank God for PDMP, because that kind of took it back off the shelf so I could actually start working on it and fuel hope back into it. So
PDMP, for those of you who don't know, is the True's Producer Development and Mentorship Program. We have a master class and we have a foundations class. And you were in the master class, weren't you?
Yes. Yeah, master class. Yes, it was the best. I recommend it to everyone. Jane and Jen are wonderful, and my show is happening. So success story.
So we helped.
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't actually know that. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Always looking for bragging rights. I just want to jump back to Edward for a second. Jane Dubin was asking, how did you distribute your audio plays? This is because we're not up to your Alma Baya yet. So, but you talked about you've created audio plays and podcasts. What was your experience with that, and how did you figure out where to go with that? I mean, did you know about it before? Do you know that world?
I was somewhat familiar with the world, and I'd always wanted to do them. But we did it directly. I used something called Podbean, and the first one actually did pretty well. I think we got 3,000, 4,000 downloads for that first one. And then the second one got only about 1,500. I'm not quite sure why one got so many and the other one didn't, but I think we're sort of able to reach the right people the first time.
Anything to do with content, perhaps? What was
maybe the first one was called "The Resistible Rise of J.R. Brinkley," with a true story on with country music and things like that. And the second one was an adaptation of a Jack London book called The Iron Heel. I actually thought because Jack London, Jack London's name recognition, maybe that would actually get more, but it turned out that Brinkley just attracted more people. So
isn't it all just a crapshoot? I mean, we all know things, and we make choices based on what we know to be, what we think to be true, and it's like you don't know.
Yeah.
With theater, you just don't know. With the entertainment business in general, you just don't know. You can't always know. So I'm going to I want to go back to Jonathan, because I wanted to go back to your story. You basically had put everything on hold. I'm very happy to hear that you were given a little bit of a boost from being in PDMP. How did you figure out so quickly? Because a lot of people, you're the first new musical to open off Broadway. Did you time it that way, or did it just happen, or?
It was a total surprise. So we, points to just putting yourself out there and seeing what opens up. But I had applied for a residency with the Players Theater. It's down on McDougal Street, it's near NYU. They have sort of an awesome program where they have a couple of slots a year where a new show in the works gets a couple of weeks in their space to kind of premiere their show. Sometimes it's, to test it out for the future. Sometimes it's to transfer. Sometimes it's just to have a one-off and then move on from there. But I had applied for it, I think sometime in mid 2020, and didn't hear back until April 2021 that they had the slot open. and it happened to be in August, and we were like, I think we're ready, which again, testament to doing the work when you're on the downtime, because when it's time to go, it's time to go. And that was kind of what opened up. Was we had a space, and we said, all right, I guess we're the first one back. So
And this was the Players Theater, correct?
Players Theater, yes.
Yeah. That used to be the true home. That used to be where we had our offices.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love the Players. They're wonderful.
Yeah, we were there for about three or 4 years. I can't remember how long.
Wow.
So it wasn't prescience. It wasn't planning. It just was luck that got you up there first.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing to learn from that.
Well, there is something to be said about putting yourself out there and never knowing when something's going to pop up. So, and being prepared when it does. So that's
okay. We'll take those
best
lessons.
I can learn from that. Yeah.
We'll take those lessons. Sure. Edward, how were you able to get your show happening so quickly? I think one of the first things that opened, if I'm not mistaken, was Urban Stages opened a show that I saw. That was socially distanced and masked, and everybody had to show proof of vaccination. And they actually asked for my vaccination card when I came into the theater. So I felt relatively safe there at the Urban Stages Theater. How did you come to jump in so quickly, so soon?
Well, I mean, part of it was, I mean, with a lot of this stuff, I've sort of jumped in quickly, and my instinct for the whole pandemic has been that it's better to be early. I mean, in some ways, it's interesting to me with all the difficulty to figure out systems and refigure out systems and all that. But we had done these two outdoor things in May, and we actually got some nice audiences for the outdoors. And it seemed like at the time, this was pre-Delta. I was like, maybe August might be a better time to put out something up than September, October, November, because the seasonal changes, the schools, all these things might change it. But it seemed like we were moving towards a really low point in August, and so I checked to see, and I knew I had this play Alma Baya that seemed right for now, right for the time. It seemed ready to go, and only 3 actors, and so it felt like it was something I could do. And so I contacted some theaters to see who was interested in it, and it turned out there were a few. They were also interested to venture and see what happens. And so Art New York offered their theaters, and usually there's a whole application process because it's a subsidized theater, etc. But they waived all that because they hadn't put that together yet even. And so they said, we'll take you in August. And so we went. And did all the rehearsals at Art New York too, at their rehearsal spaces.
So what are the COVID protocols, and what were your requirements for you to feel comfortable producing something for a live audience? What were your requirements?
Well, I mean, I think the number one requirement was that everybody involved, whether the audience or crew or cast, had to be vaccinated. And so that's where we started. And that made it clear when we were like casting, made it clear when we were going through all that. And the other thing, and so we have 2 casts, and the reason that started, it was, I felt like if somebody feels sick, they should have the ability to say, I can't come in. Because like there's an attitude in indie theater, which I've always been part of, is like you push on no matter what. But I don't want to create an unsafe situation for people where they feel like I have to come in even though I'm feeling sick in order to get the show up. so that with a second cast, there's an alternative and backup. And so that was one of the things I wanted to do. Everybody's masked like during the shows. I mean, but it's yeah. I mean, I think that's the main protocols.
And I think it's worth mentioning for those of you who don't know, the play itself is about two people in isolation who are afraid of an outsider coming in. So it's a very apt metaphor for the COVID situation. Did you pick the piece because of that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a piece I had written and wanted to do, but it felt right for the time. And so
But had you written it pre-COVID or had you written it?
I actually had written pretty much all of it pre-COVID. I did a little bit of revision during COVID, but
Edward, you're just too damn prescient. This is for your own good. Oh my goodness. So you knew that we were going to be stuck in shutdown for a year and a half, and you knew that the play you were writing was going to happen. All right. You're a little scary. Okay. So the two casts could come back to that. So I think that's actually a great thing. I don't think anybody's ever really thought of that, or I don't think many people have addressed that. So what do you do if during COVID, during a shutdown, during a pandemic, if one of your cast members doesn't feel well enough to come in, as you just said? So double casting for you was minimally painful because it's three characters. Right. It might get a little bit more problematic for Stranger Things. How many are in your cast, Jonathan?
We have 9 in our cast, so
and
we do not have 9 extra actors. So
no, that would be a lot. That'd be a lot. So both of you, I'm going to ask you a very sensitive question, but it's really important. Edward, are you cast with equity or non-equity?
Non-equity.
Jonathan?
Non-equity.
Do you mind telling me whether you have worked with equity in the past, Edward, and whether you have reasons for going non-equity that might be union related?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've done lots of equity theater. I mean, it was impossible to do an equity show, especially when I was thinking of it. They didn't have any provisions. And the other thing that was very important to me was that we have a streaming and on-demand element of it, because in this time, I just feel like for those who don't feel comfortable going to the theater, for those who are maybe have medical reasons that they don't want to go to the theater, whatever the things are, you really need to make it accessible to a greater audience. And so, I mean, that I count that actually as a COVID precaution as well as an artistic decision. And both the two casts became an artistic decision as well. I directed them a little differently. They're different shows a little bit. And with Iben, was able to find, a lot of interesting, things to do with the streaming. But that's also about COVID. And I just can't imagine trying to do a show right now that doesn't have that element to it. And I sort of don't want to go back, to tell you the truth.
So can I ask you a couple specific questions? First of all, how is your ticketing the pricing for your tickets live versus live stream? How have you figured out that enigma?
It's exactly the same.
Exactly the same?
$25 live, it's $25 live stream.
So Iben, I'm going to turn to you. Tell me about what the process was for photographing this for live streaming. I've worked with you where nobody's been anywhere in person. I mean, everybody's been in their own rooms. You actually took equipment to a theater this time, right?
Yes. A week before, I mean, literally the day before the load-in, I went and saw the last full run through of both casts, the rehearsal. And I took down notes, where I knew where the camera was going to be. And so I could see what kind of activity that took place on the stage would be interesting to focus on. We had discussions, Edward and I, about where the cameras would work. There's specifically one piece of this performance, which is kind of sensitive because the third character enters into the theater naked. And given that I'm a female person, I felt that it was important that we had that discussion, and I talked with the actors as well what they would feel comfortable with. And then Edward didn't see me before Thursday. We took all our equipment to the theater at Arts, which is that's not true. We had a walkthrough of the whole facility a couple of weeks earlier. I think it was, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where we knew what we had to work with when we went in there with our equipment. Which is, by the way, Art is just wonderful. It from a technical point of view, that's the place to go.
Well, why from a technical point of view?
Because they're totally wired up. That's the short way of saying it. They have everything that you need. They have.
They're technically equipped for.
Yeah, technically equipped, and they have staff, there constantly to work with you to make sure that things actually hook up and work, that kind of thing.
And how many cameras did you use?
We used 3. And I also brought along our mixer. And I was sitting in the booth and mixed it live as we were streaming it. And I had 1 stationary and 2 camera operators.
So I'm trying to think how this relates to what we've done. It's really a completely different thing from
Yes,
doing these things on Zoom.
Yeah.
This is really film.
Yeah. Well, it's actually in a way more TV, because you're sitting there with 3 cameras and you're choosing which one am I going to actually show right now. So it's like that.
See, one of the key questions that has come up for 17 months is, if we're filming it and if it's on Zoom, is it theater? And people are constantly debating this. And I just went with the guy who said, if I say it's theater because I say it's theater, but we were looking at ways to create a theater experience on film. You didn't have to do that in this case, because basically you had a theater experience, you had a live performance, and you were just trying to photograph it in a way that would work in a different medium. There's still the issue, not the issue, but the importance of understanding the medium that you're working in. You have to, even though you're photographing a live performance, you have to think of it as a television filming.
So I'm muting myself. I turned the birds back on. Yes. One of the things that was very interesting. I mean, we do have 4 recordings of the show that we live streamed. We live streamed and recorded them at the same time. From the first 2, it was the 2 performances on the Saturday, the previews, and then the 2 performances on the Sunday. Edward took a look and said, yeah, I don't think you're really using the medium well enough, because I don't mind only seeing some of the characters, and there's certain, so they all 3 don't, when they're on stage, they don't all 3 to be there to see it. So you are allowed to push in closer. So the shows that we streamed Sunday, I did a lot more directing of the camera operators and basically saying, you focus on that, zoom in there, go back out a bit, that way, so I could frame it properly. And knowing the both the show itself, as in what comes when, but also what the blocking is. And because we had 2 different casts, the blocking was slightly different. I mean, so for instance, like now she's coming through the door now we need to be ready for that kind of thing. So it was a very satisfying experience for me personally to do that and work with Edwin and his team, because they're really accommodating.
So my question now is, since you're live streaming each of the performances, first of all, how many performances are there, Edward?
So I think there are 18 total performances between until the 28th.
And you're going to live stream every one of those. So Eben's going to be there.
No. We live streamed the first weekend, so those were 4 shows, and then we converted one of each cast into an on-demand video.
And that was easier.
That on-demand. That was. I mean, it just takes a lot. Otherwise, even would have to be in the theater every single night,
Right.
and so that would be very hard on us all. But the on-demand would be available through September 19th.
So, okay, so the live streams are now going to be on demand. They're going to be available on demand, which is 2 different things that people. I know I always confuse them, but live stream means that you're seeing something that's being done live while you're watching it, and then on video on demand is something that's been edited and in post production. So
yeah. In
live streaming, even help me on this. You have 3 cameras. They're set up, and are you at a board that decides which one of them is going to own the screen for that moment?
Yes. I mean, in effect, if you imagine that what we're all looking at right now is Zoom with 4 characters in it, I would then choose, because I'm now talking, that's the same thing, I would live stream that and you wouldn't see the other 3. But if I may sort of clarify a little bit, the video on demand that is available now is actually the live stream. So it hasn't been post-edited. I mean, the only thing that has happened to it is that we put in some text about who the cast are, because we did not have that in the live stream, and we felt it was important that we needed to do that.
Okay, so you're not doing any post-production editing of this. If you have 3 cameras, but
yes.
not all 3 of them are capturing actual film at any one time, because you're pressing a button and saying, go to camera 1, go to camera 2, go to camera 3.
Well, they're all 3 running at the same time, because otherwise I can't switch between them.
So you have footage. So if Edward wanted to create the perfect video on demand, you could actually take all 3 streams and post production. And I'm not suggesting that you do it, but I'm just saying that that's what you could do, right?
I could do, because we chose to record it also at the same time. So I do have all 3 cameras, the full length of it. But what the live stream is it's a mix of, because it's already like post-production, because I did the live editing as we streamed, so I do have that, yes. And Edward is going to have that as well, because we it feels like the right thing to do. But generally speaking, there's no post-editing.
I mean, that's why I think Eben's very right, that it's much closer to TV done as a live studio performance rather than a film. I actually was part of a play, The Last Cyclist, that we made into a film. And that was a very different situation. It was like we were filming it, we were doing scenes over and over again. We chose the angles, we edited. That's a very different a world than a live stream.
Magali is asking whether it was equity or SAG, and that it was neither, I assume, because they chose to go non-equity with it, non-union with it. I didn't ask whether any of your actors were SAG members, though. So if they're SAG members, there might be some complication there.
And there weren't any union complications. So
okay.
We went non-union. Yeah.
So we have 2 shows running off Broadway. Both of them have chosen to go non-equity. Jonathan, do you want to talk a little bit about why you decided that non-equity was certainly the easier route to go?
I mean, just financially, it made the most sense for what we are. I think also other parodies in the city have traditionally been non-union. Looking at The Office and the Friends parody. Puffs was a big one that was non-union with like 15 actors. So that's always sort of been our model since the beginning. And we've had an incredible cast of non-union talent that has kind of stuck with us since the beginning. So that's the majority why we've gone that route.
So I'm going to go back to the question I asked Edward earlier for you, which was, what were your minimum requirements when you decided that you were willing to take a chance and do a live performance?
In terms of COVID or
protocols,
protocols, yeah. I mean, yeah, we I don't know that we required vaccinations, but we certainly like emphasized that is what we were hoping for and looking for in the auditions. And luckily we got actors that were all vaccinated, which was great. It's funny because we cast the show mid-June, started rehearsals in like early to mid-July. And at that time, the general spirit was like, hey, we're back. Everyone's vaccinated. We're all maskless in the room together. Like, we're having a great time, and just get vaccinated and the pandemic's over. And the first, 2 weeks of rehearsals, we were maskless in the room and having a great time. And it sort of felt like, we were taking temperatures and we were kind of keeping track. If anyone got sick, of course we would take a pause. But other than that, we were generally pretty optimistic. And then, towards the end of July, we started hearing about Delta, and then we started seeing the mandates about, or the recommendations from CDC to wear masks inside, even if you are vaccinated. So we started taking that on. The theater has always had a policy of either testing a negative test or vaccination card. And now we're shifting more towards vaccination only for our audiences. And of course, mandating masks now. But yeah, so, we're testing our actors every week now. We're doing everything we can to make sure our audiences are safe. But then the actors, of course, are still maskless on stage as long as they're staying tested. So
things that I know, that I think are that the Players Theater has an HVAC system that has a filtration updated, state of the art. I guess it was sort of state of the art, filtration system. Michael has followed the best practices that he was able to.
Absolutely.
But I don't think that you're doing socially distanced seating. So how big are your audiences? It's 190 seats, isn't it?
Yeah, we have some seats taken up for the pits. I think it's somewhere between like 160, 170. It depends day to day. I think we are letting people sit
let me ask
together.
you this: Has it ever felt crowded?
Yes, I mean that space is really pretty compact. So even with even 3/4 house feels like a sold out house in a way. But yeah, it has felt. We've had a couple of performances that have felt especially crowded.
When I saw the piece at Urban Stages, we were for the most part masked, but not everybody was masked. But everybody was vaccinated, and we were seated in such a way that there was always a couple seats between us. We weren't sitting next to people. When I went to Goodspeed last week and saw Little Girl Blue, the Nina Simone musical, produced by Rashad Chambers, who's going to be a guest in a couple weeks here, by the way. Again, vaccination was required, but nobody asked us. At Urban Stages, they asked us. At Goodspeed, they did not ask us. But the seats were set up so that there was one chair between every pair of seats. And if somebody bought a single, they would not sell the other part of the pair. So they were doing what they could. I felt relatively comfortable there, I must say. And I've heard people talk about with partial audiences, you don't have a real feeling of an audience being there. Not the case here. There were a good 50 people or more in the audience, but it was a very responsive crowd. And I had the full experience of being in a theater with an audience that was out of their minds with joy. They were just going nuts from it. Edward, how many seats are at it's the Paula Goral Theater, or do I have that right?
Yeah. They have a 99 maximum. It's a 99 seat theater, but we've set it up for only 60 seats.
So it's somewhat socially distanced. Somewhat.
Yeah, somewhat. Yes, somewhat.
Okay. And from a financial standpoint, Jonathan, do you have I shouldn't pry, but do you have a business plan for this where it requires a certain number of ticket sales per performance for you to break even, or how does that,
Yeah,
how does that work?
yeah,
How's that working out for you?
Yeah, no, I mean we're definitely breaking even. That's there is a system in place with the Players Theater as far as the ticket split and how that works with them as part of the residency program. But yeah.
And did Michael Skouras at the Players Theater offer you any advantages for being the first to come into his theater?
I mean they've had shows going for a little while. They had, I mean, Michael runs their own productions of Cinderella and Sleepy Hollow and other shows they've written. So they've had a couple of shows before ours in the space before we came in.
Do you know when he started running those shows?
I want to say May or June.
May seems to be the magic month when people started.
It was
doing
May. Yeah.
The merry month of May. I want to, because Edward's going to have to leave at 6. I think you both have to leave at 6. So I want to open it up to the room for any questions, anything that we haven't covered that you're curious about. Murray Davis had asked, or she's made a statement. So to confirm, this is to Iben probably. Basically, live streaming versus watching it live, you are just seeing it through a different eye, the eye of the camera or the human eye, right? So you're getting a head nod from Murray on that, Murray, from Iben on that, Murray. And I see Edward also responded to you. Live streaming benefit can do close-ups that the human eye cannot see from rows further back. Did you use much? Edward convinced you to start using more close-ups.
Yes, he did. I was concerned about that. I wanted when people were having, them saying their lines, that it would feel wrong not to be able to see them on camera. And Edward said, no, I want that because this is the important part. So
well, there's two
dialed
things.
up the work I had to do.
Well, there's two important things to think about when you're filming. Not only the person that's speaking, but also the reaction shots. So a lot of times, a film director will intentionally cut away from the person that's speaking because the reaction is the more important part of the scene.
Yes, and I think going forward, that will be one of the most important discussions to have with any live production that's going to be live streamed and live edited. Is that what's the expectations here?
Yeah, what is the focus in each of the moments?
Right.
I mean, to me, it's exciting just having to think in a new medium, in a different medium. I love thinking in different mediums. Jonathan and Edward, do you use casting directors for non-union shows? Did you cast with the casting director? Jonathan, you want to share with us about?
Yeah, we did. We definitely did.
Who was your casting director?
Yeah, we had. It was actually a friend from Bullock and Snow Casting. They actually do TV and film out in LA for like Nickelodeon and that type of stuff. So this is actually their first theatrical venture, which was really, really fun. But they found some awesome talent. So we had a couple of actors from early productions that we brought along, and then we cast. It was about half and half. So we cast about 5 new actors and then kept 4. So.
Okay. And Edward, did you use a casting person?
No, I tend to do. I tend to wear multiple hats.
You probably work with people over 25 years of running a company. You probably have actors that you want to call on.
Yeah, there were actors I called on though, because it was non-equity and other things. I also need to look for new actors. So we did audition quite a number of actors. And so some of them are old time people, and some of them are new to the company. So.
Larry has a nice technical question for Iben. Were the 3 cameras set up at the back of the theater and unnoticed by the audience, or was one or more of the cameras mobile on stage for the close-ups?
We had all 3 cameras at the edge of the seatings. 2 of them were sort of quite close to each other, and the third one was on its own to the side. We achieved the close-ups with having good lenses, basically. So we had the zoom ability in the cameras. It's about having the good cameras.
And just for everybody who isn't reading chat, the technical software that Iben used for running the show was OBS.
Yes.
Which many of us are familiar with it on Zoom and on virtual presentation, but I didn't even know that it worked in a theater and live situation, but obviously it does.
Yes, the way we achieved
it probably was there first.
Yeah. Well, the way we achieved it is we had the 3 cameras linked straight into the mixer, and the mixer was then streaming to a preset up Vimeo link, which we then streamed, so everybody had access to that link that had gone through and buying tickets for it, and it would just count down from that until we went live.
Edward, Ralph wants to know whether you used any of the actors who were in the torn page reading.
Oh, one of them is in our cast B, Nalina, but the other 2 were not available. Actually, one of them was out of town, and the third was cast in a Shakespeare production somewhere in the Midwest.
That's a good gig.
Yeah.
Okay. Cost-wise, how? I don't know if we want to go into the specifics of the cost of live streaming, but can you give us a sense of how much that increased your budget, Edward, building in the live stream part of it and the camera and the technical stuff? I
mean, there's a cost to hire even, and that's the cost. And so, there's a like with anything, you have to pay the people who are working. So, but I mean, it just adds a few people to the number of people we're paying.
Noel McDuffie wants to know, was there a time delay built into the live stream?
Well, there is a natural time delay, but yes, no, we did not. We had, again, that's one of those questions that we know we need to ask further on, is do we want to have a time delay in there? So for instance, like the scenario, we had the nudity, how do we deal with that? And we had discussions about that. One of the ways we could have dealt with that would have been to build in a time delay and then, apply a patch or something like that. But since both actresses ended up saying, I just don't know I don't want to know where the cameras are. And, and we, the whole lighting design of it was wonderful. The lighting went down and so on. So, I think the blocking was fantastic to try and protect the integrity of their persons.
Well, okay.
So we didn't need a delay.
Does anybody want to come into the room and say hello? And before we have to say goodbye to Edward and Jonathan, both have performances tonight, so they can stretch a couple minutes. But come on into the room, Jane. Hello, Jane.
Hi, Jonathan. I'm so stoked for Jonathan. He was in the fall session of our first fully virtual class. And weren't you one of the big kahunas?
Yes.
Did you win the prize? Yes. Jonathan was, we give out a big kahuna prize, and Jonathan was one of that comes with a little bit of money. I'm sure it didn't help.
Speaking of which, here's another big kahuna. Hello,
another
Joan
big
Elms.
kahuna. But Jonathan, I'm so proud of what you're doing, and I will be upstate for the next couple of weeks. I won't be able to come down, but if you film it anywhere, let me know.
Of course,
I'm
of
sure,
course.
I'm sure there'll be other iterations of it, but and Iben too just finished the spring semester, and she came in and her project was her virtual company, and she came in with, I don't know if I'm going to do this, and then we kicked her ass, and she's working.
I'm so impressed with myself. I didn't realize that I'd actually booked this today with two people from masterclass who have fulfilled their class projects and are here to talk about it.
Yep, pretty exciting.
How about that? That's amazing.
Yep.
Edward, I know I don't want you to be stressed. Anytime you need to leave, you can leave. But I still think people have a tendency to come in and ask questions. So again,
as I told you, I'm gonna do my little pitch. So New York Magazine just let us know this afternoon they're coming in this evening. So I'm trying to get there to help set up. If anyone wants to come tonight,
I encourage it, everybody. I got a nice review in the Times today. It sounds like a very interesting piece. I'm not sure which cast will they see tonight, A or B?
Tonight is cast A, which is the cast that was reviewed in the Times. But they're both good casts. They're different. One is more I don't know. One hit cast A hit a little bit more of the comedy.
So Edward, you mean to tell me you actually let the actors express their own concepts about the characters?
Yes, he did.
How daring!
Which is why there's a two-pack. There's actually, you can buy both shows, and get a cheaper package that way, a cheaper ticket price. Because it feels like two different plays, having seen it now quite a few times.
Yeah, I bet you've seen it a few times. So I don't know if Edward told you even, but you're actually the understudy for one of the people in cast B. That's why you've seen it so many times. Murray, how are you? Hello. If nobody else has questions, I'm actually going to do the wrap up here for YouTube, and just thank everybody for being here today, and thank you, Edward, and thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Iben, for being my guests today and talking about your shows. I'm still sort of impressed that you guys are among the first to be out there. Even though Michael and Players Theater has been doing their shows since May, those were shows that already existed, as I recall, as I know the Players Theater. So these were new shows. So you guys had to go through the whole process of casting, rehearsing, and getting a show up, which is never an easy thing to do. So kudos to you.
And finding an audience too. That's the other fun part of this. So
finding an audience.
You want everything, huh?
So let's do a little pitch for you too then. So Edward, tonight, anybody who wants to see the show, how do they do it? The show is at 52nd and 10th Avenue. Is that correct?
53rd and 10th. Yeah.
53rd and 10th.
Not virtual. Yep. Nothing virtual.
Well, there's the on-demand available, of course. So you can.
But he needs people in seats because he's got the New York. You say New York, or what did you say was coming?
New York Magazine is coming.
New York Magazine is coming.
Yeah.
So he wants an audience. So can they?
So all the tickets are on our website, which is untitledtheater.com. So if you want to see it live, you can buy it there. If you want to see the on demand, you can also buy it there. I'll just put the untitledtheater.com into the
Untitled Theater without a space between Untitled and Theater.
I did that unconsciously. There we go.
There we go.
Did I get that? Okay. Great. Thank you very much, Stephen. So you can definitely buy there, and also you can buy it at the door. There's just remember to bring the vaccination proof and photo ID.
Oh,
because
about
it's,
that, for both of you, a question that belated question. Does your venue take the New York passport?
yes,
So they can bring the card or the New York passport, the app
Yeah.
that shows you're vaccinated.
Yeah.
yeah. We scan. I don't know if the same thing for you, Jonathan, but we have the scan thing.
Oh, you have a scan for it. Okay, also, that's the
Yeah.
third thing, because when you the app, basically you just bring it up and it's has like a blue card, a virtual card that says that you're vaccinated and all and
Okay.
good through whenever. So everybody come into the room. I want to also remind everybody that we do this out of the goodness of our heart, but we also have to do something about our pockets, our wallet. So anybody that feels inclined, please go to truedonate.com, trudonate.com, and do what you can to keep us going. So far, you've been successful. You've kept us going for 17 months and kept us going well. We've been doing well because of you, because of your support. It's not an invitation to take us for granted, but thank you all. And this is probably where I'm going to end the YouTube video.